So overall, I thought this class was really useful and it made me recognize a lot that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. While I have always been interested in this subject, I obviously only was really exposed to media that I would personally want to expose myself to or that I was interested in watching. So this was nice because this class gave me kind of a wider range and forced me to look at the media more critically, and especially media that I probably wouldn't see or watch otherwise. I think that the media is steadily improving in terms of representation, and I think that's proven just through what we've seen compared to when we looked at old films and movies and the documentaries and how they represented basically any group, whether that be people of color or LGBTQ plus people, how they showed just any type of not white cis person, and even just females were represented really poorly. And there's still problems with this, but I think it is improving a lot. There's a lot of shows that are very good at that, and even the shows that aren't very good at it are still improved from how it was in the past. I think a good measure of how representation is doing overall is looking at how family-friendly shows and really popular shows that are the things that you would talk about with coworkers, or you kind of expect everyone at least knows what it is, are using representation. So for example, a lot of shows that are now typically family friendly shows and that are not really controversial at all have really good representation, or at least they're improving on it, such as they have Fresh Off the Boat, Modern Family, Blackish, The Fosters, and so on. All of these shows discuss race issues, homophobia, transphobia, and on and on. And not all of them obviously addressed all of these, but they do address one or two. There are biracial couples, there's prominent LGBTQ characters that aren't just there as a token. They have really complex personalities and storylines, and so on. There's also just, not those token characters, and there's more to the plot and character than just being that defining feature. They're good characters that contribute to the show, and that represents normal life. And I think that the media is heading in the right direction, and I never really thought about it when I was watching these things until I was critically comparing them to old shows such as Friends. So clearly these are an improvement in terms of representation. So it's definitely heading in the right direction. It's not perfect yet, but I think it'll keep improving. I thought the most valuable assignment was doing pitch 2. It made me realize that this task was kind of difficult, and it's important to keep it authentic and make sure you're not just using characters for tokens, but make sure that it does represent real life. And I thought all the pitches that I personally heard did a good job of this. So that kind of put you in the shoes of the people creating this. Obviously, you just want it to represent real life, but you don't want anything to, come off badly. And you want to stay away from, stereotypes and everything like that. And I think it's interesting because then you put in those shoes and everyone is going to have an opinion on it, and you kind of have to realize that you're not going to please anyone, but you just have to make sure you're being representative, you're including everyone, and you just kind of have that thought in the back of your mind at all times. And I'm, in general, a strong believer that the media impacts people in so many ways, and it shouldn't be just considered something for fun. You should take the media seriously, and for a lot of people, especially children, this is where they see or are exposed to people for maybe the first time that look like them, or that they can relate to, that are in similar situations as them, and they should be able to have role models in this way. For example, when people see Olivia Pope in Scandal, or they saw Melly Grant as a woman president, they see, young girls will look up and see these people as strong leaders and not just as, a mother figure or just a sexual object. They see these people with power. They think, I can do this too. And I think it's really important. I love that they had a woman as president because, yes, maybe that doesn't reflect real life. It really could. It probably will soon. And I think that this encourages people and kind of makes people see, this is possible, this can happen, instead of just seeing the stereotypes. The media also impacts in general how the whole population receives other people. And again, this class reinforced that. Obviously, in the media, if we see like black people only represented as criminals or gay men only represented as very feminine, that's what people are just going to assume that everyone in that community is and stereotype them as such, which is dangerous and just not true of the real world. So I think that it's important that, you know, we take that into account. We make sure that we are just like media looks like the real world, because that's what it's trying to represent. And I think that a lot of people that aren't exposed to things in their like real life, that's how they assume the world actually works. For example, like I grew up in a really small town and I was never really in big cities, and what I saw in media about what a big city was like and what life was like there, that's exactly how I'm going to think it is, because as a child you don't understand that that's not always correct. After this class, I definitely noticed myself being more critical of the media, especially when it comes to stereotyping, but also I do appreciate authenticity, and I just feel like I notice a lot more in the media when I'm consuming it. I just started watching Shameless, and I think the show has a really good balance of being really authentic but not giving into the stereotypes. And I definitely think it's beneficial to do this and recognize strengths and weaknesses to everything, because nothing is going to be perfect, and we can't just only focus on the negative things all the time. Like, we have to say, here's what you can do better, but this is what you're doing well, because that's how people learn, and that's, you know, reinforcement and constructive criticism compared to just kind of yelling at everyone and saying, you're horrible, you're doing this horribly. And it's not just blindly yelling, because real change is made through recognizing where improvements have been made already and then suggesting things that need to be improved upon. And that's how people are more, you know, accepting of it and maybe being a little more like, yes, that makes sense, let's take that into consideration. Overall, I really enjoyed this class, and I think there were some really cool things that we did, and I enjoyed consuming all of the media. One thing that particularly sticks out was the Disney movie week, which I thought was really cool because I haven't seen those movies since I was a kid, and obviously I feel like I would talk about it differently now that I watch them as an adult, because before I rewatched Mulan, for example, I would just say, oh, it's about a woman that, you know, poses as her dad to join the army, and then she, like, did really well. But now I definitely see it more critically. It's not really a huge feminist film because of the ending and other problems we talked about, but I think overall, again, we can see that the media is improving, and it still has ways to go, but I'm very hopeful. Thanks.